Imagine waking up tomorrow, grabbing your coffee, and finding out a hacker completely infiltrated your company, stole all this sensitive data, and hijacked your email.
Yeah, nightmare scenario.
Right. But the truly terrifying part is they didn't even crack your password. They completely bypassed your two-factor authentication.
Just walked right past it.
Exactly. The very digital token that was supposed to, verify your identity actually became the weapon they used against you. So welcome to the agentic era.
It is wild out there right now.
It really is. Today, we are doing a deep dive into Andrew Kagan's latest technical dispatch, his April 16th, 2026 newsletter. We really want to understand how the rules of tech are just being completely rewritten.
From the ground up, yeah.
And if you're listening to this deep dive, you're probably someone who wants to stay ahead of the curve, but, without drowning in a sea of white papers.
Which is easy to do these days.
Oh, for sure. We're focusing on Kagan's signature theme today, which is random technical news you can possibly use. And let me tell you, what we are looking at today fundamentally changes what it means to work in tech.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the sheer volume of updates across Azure, DevOps, Microsoft 365, and security is just staggering. But when you lay them all out, there's this really profound unifying thread.
And that's the agentic era you mentioned.
Exactly. We are no longer just using AI as a conversational chatbot where you ask a question and get a text response. We are actively deploying autonomous agents across literally every layer of the tech stack.
So the software isn't just assisting us anymore.
No, it's doing the work on our behalf.
Okay, let's unpack this because that is a massive conceptual leap for a lot of people.
It's a huge leap.
It feels like moving from using a spell checker that just highlights your typos in red to hiring a ghostwriter who writes the book, edits it, formats the layout, and then negotiates the publishing deal while you're asleep.
That is a perfect analogy. The human role is shifting drastically from operator to orchestrator. And to see how that orchestration actually works in practice, we have to look at the people building these systems.
Right, the developers.
Yeah. The newsletter highlighted this fascinating document called the DevOps Playbook for the Agentic Era. And it details a fundamental paradigm shift. They are moving away from writing prompts.
Wait, really? Moving away from prompts?
Yeah, instead they're learning to write strict specifications.
Well, okay, that makes intuitive sense, actually. A prompt is essentially a creative suggestion, right? You're just asking the AI to try its best.
Right. Make me a nice website.
Exactly. But a specification is a rigid boundary. If you have an AI agent actively writing your company's code, you don't want it being, creative.
No, not at all.
You want it operating within strict, predictable guardrails.
And to enforce those guardrails, our CI/CD pipelines, our continuous integration and deployment pipelines, they're evolving in tandem.
So they aren't just gatekeepers anymore.
Right. Historically, a pipeline was a simple gatekeeper. It checked for syntax errors, made sure the code compiled. Now they've become what Kagan calls active verifiers.
Active verifiers, meaning they do more than just check the math.
Exactly. They run complex logic checks to test the actual intent and behavior of the AI-generated code before it ever reaches production.
Wait, I have to push back here.
Okay, go for it.
If an AI is writing the code and another AI agent running in our pipeline is acting as this active verifier, who verifies the verifier?
That is the big question.
Right. I mean, it sounds like we're building a loop of automated hallucination. What happens when the coding agent and the testing agent just kind of collude on a flawed assumption?
That right there is the architectural danger of the decade. If you simply let two large language models validate each other in a vacuum, drift is completely inevitable.
So how do we fix it?
The safeguard lies in deterministic testing. You have to ground the active verifiers in undeniable, hard-coded business logic rather than probabilistic guessing.
Okay, so hard rules, not AI vibes.
Exactly. And Microsoft is actually baking the tooling for this directly into the developer environment. Visual Studio 2022 now natively ships with Azure MCP tools.
Okay, let's quickly demystify MCP for anyone who hasn't been deep in the weeds this month. That stands for Model Context Protocol, right?
That's right.
It's essentially this universal plug-and-play standard that lets AI models securely connect to external data sources and tools.
Yeah, it bridges the gap.
And the fact that it's now built directly into Visual Studio, no third-party extensions needed, means developers can bind their AI agents to actual deterministic databases seamlessly.
Seamlessly. Furthermore, developers using .NET now have three distinct Advanced Security has rolled out one-click security scanning and organization-wide alert triage to catch those hallucinated security flaws before they go live.
Oh, wow. But, this isn't just a revolution for the pro-code developers writing in .NET.
No, the low-code side is moving just as fast.
Right, because Microsoft Copilot Studio is allowing everyday users to mix AI agents directly into standard business workflows.
Which is huge.
It is. So instead of just building a dumb automated rule that says, if an invoice is over $10,000, email the manager, you are embedding an autonomous decision maker right into the middle of that process.
To actually evaluate the context of the invoice. But the hidden consequence there is that you suddenly have thousands of micro agents running around your corporate network making daily operational decisions.
Which sounds like an administrative nightmare.
It can be. This is exactly why Microsoft just announced that Power Platform Monitor alerts have reached general availability.
So admins can actually see what's happening.
Yes, system administrators can now proactively monitor the health and behavior of code apps, Canvas apps, model-driven apps, and they even have work queue monitoring currently in preview.
Yeah, you need a highly sensitive smoke detector if you're going to let the AI cook dinner unsupervised.
That's a great way to put it.
But embedding these decision makers into your workflows creates this massive new bottleneck.
Yeah.
An AI agent trying to process a complex decision is completely paralyzed if the information it pulls from is just a total disaster.
Oh, absolutely. Which brings us to the underlying data layer, the engine room.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out.
It's the oldest axiom in computer science. But in the agentic era, the penalty for bad data is exponential.
Kagan's newsletter pointed to a brilliant piece from the Microsoft Inside Track blog about this. It's about conditioning unstructured data for AI.
Oh, the digital hoarding problem.
Yes. We all know the visceral pain of stumbling across an old abandoned SharePoint site, or like a network folder from 2015 filled with documents labeled Final Version V3, actually final.docs.
We all have those folders.
We do. And for a human employee, it's just annoying. But for an AI agent, like the new employee self-service agent, it is a critical failure.
Because it doesn't know the difference.
Exactly. It will read an outdated HR policy from 10 years ago and present it to a new hire as absolute fact.
So the AI is essentially acting as a forcing function for enterprise data governance. We can no longer treat our network drives like digital addicts.
We actually have to clean our rooms.
We really do. And the processing power we are throwing at this sanitized data is unprecedented. The Microsoft Foundry March 2026 update is a prime example of this.
What's new in Foundry?
Well, the Foundry Agent service is now generally available, bringing end-to-end private networking.
Okay, so that means your agents can process proprietary corporate data without the traffic crossing the public internet.
Exactly. It stays entirely in-house, and the engines powering that analysis are getting significantly heavier. GPT 5.4 and GPT 5.4 Pro are officially GA now.
Wow, already.
Yeah, and these models feature deeply integrated computer use and incredible instruction adherence. But we really need to look at the pricing to understand their purpose.
Because it's not cheap, right?
The Pro model costs $30 per million input tokens.
Okay, for context, a million tokens is roughly a few thick novels worth of text. You are absolutely not using a $30 per million token model to, summarize a 5-line email from your boss.
Definitely not. You are reserving that horsepower for deep, complex analytical workloads.
Like having the agent read through thousands of pages of legal contracts to find contradictory clauses.
Precisely. And alongside that textual power, Minimax just released the MMX CLI.
Let's break down that acronym too. CLI stands for Command Line Interface. Why does an AI agent need native CLI access?
Well, because traditionally, if an AI wanted to interact with an image or an audio file, it had to go through a clunky user interface intermediary, just like a human does.
Right, it had to look at the screen, essentially.
Exactly. But by giving the agent native command line access to images, video, speech, and music, it can process that raw binary data directly at the foundational code level.
It bypasses the screen entirely.
The multimodal capabilities are just on another level now.
It's like we're trying to feed a Michelin star chef, but until now, we've been handing them ingredients from a hoarder's pantry while forcing them to wear oven mitts.
That's hilarious, but it's true.
But now the AI has the raw data access and the raw compute, which obviously requires serious infrastructure.
Definitely. And Azure is evolving at breakneck speed to host all of this. The Azure MCP Server 2.0 stable release just dropped.
Which provides the exact backbone needed for self-hosted agentic cloud automation.
Yeah, and the specific Azure features highlighted in this dispatch show a really clear trend toward localized, highly secure AI execution. For instance, Gemma 4 is now running on Azure Container App's serverless GPU.
Okay, serverless GPU. That is a dense string of buzzwords, but the mechanism behind it is fascinating.
It really is. Walk us through it.
Well, think about a highly regulated industry, like a hospital or a defense contractor. They legally cannot send their patient records or classified data out to an external public API, like OpenAI servers.
It's a massive compliance violation.
Exactly. So by using container apps, they package the software into an isolated box. Serverless means they don't have to maintain the underlying operating system.
Right.
And GPU gives them the heavy graphical processing chips required to run AI. So putting it all together, they can run an incredibly advanced model like Gemma 4 entirely within their own locked-down private cloud environment on demand.
It just completely democratizes powerful AI for industries bound by strict compliance.
It's brilliant.
And the unblocking of legacy systems just continues from there. There's the new one-command backup configuration for AKS, which is Azure Kubernetes Service via Azure Backup.
Oh, nice.
And crucially, Azure Migrate now fully supports Azure files for both SMB and NFS file shares.
Okay, so SMB is typically your Windows environments, and NFS handles your Linux and Unix systems.
Right.
Migrating those seamlessly into Azure files means companies can finally unblock those ancient on-premise servers that have been sitting in basement server rooms for a decade.
The ones everyone is afraid to touch.
Exactly. And they can pipe that legacy data up into the cloud where the AI agents can actually reach it.
But managing a hybrid, multi-tenant infrastructure of that scale is just beyond human capacity.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
You'd need an army of engineers.
Which is why the AI-powered SRE agent, the Site Reliability Engineering agent, is now integrating directly with Azure Lighthouse.
So managed service providers have a unified view.
Yes. MSPs and enterprise IT teams now have a single AI-assisted control plane to monitor the health of these sprawling digital estates across multiple different client organizations simultaneously.
Okay, so we've established that these autonomous agents are churning through massive amounts of sanitized data in Azure, checking their own code and DevOps pipelines.
Right. The back end is humming.
But the everyday employee isn't looking at Azure back-end dashboards. They are living in Word, Excel, and Teams. How does this agentic reality actually manifest on, say, an accountant's or a marketer's computer screen?
It manifests through seamless integration. Microsoft 365 Copilot is bringing these agents directly into the flow of work.
The flow of work, I love that phrase.
It's so accurate, though. If you need to approve an inventory request, you don't have to open a new tab, log into some clunky procurement portal, and hunt for the right page.
You just stay where you are.
Exactly. The agent surfaces the exact interactive components you need right inside the Teams chat you are already looking at.
And the physical interface of our software is literally changing its shape to accommodate this, which I find fascinating.
Oh, the edge redesign.
Yes. There was a subtle but incredibly revealing note in the sources about Microsoft Edge's new design language. The browser is softening all of its sharp corners.
Yeah, very smooth.
And they were replacing traditional checkboxes with these rounded iOS-like toggles. The explicit goal seems to be making the entire web browser visually mimic the Copilot interface.
Yeah.
This is where we see the true UI convergence. The user interface of the near future isn't a traditional web browser with an AI chatbot awkwardly bolted onto the sidebar anymore.
No, they're becoming one thing.
Right. The concept of the browser and the concept of the AI are melting into a single, unified aesthetic and functional experience.
And I have to ask you, the listener, to reflect on this for a second. Think about your own daily workflow. Does making a dense web browser look like a simplified mobile app genuinely make it easier for you to use?
It's a fair question.
Does it lower your cognitive load? Or is this just an arbitrary design trend designed to mask the fact that the browser is taking more control out of your hands? It's really something to scrutinize as these updates alter your daily screen time.
Because aesthetics almost always mask deeper structural shifts.
Always.
And speaking of structural shifts, as we embed these agents into our browsers and hand them access to our private Azure data, we arrive at the most critical layer of the tech stack.
The shield.
Exactly. Security. The attack surface hasn't just expanded, it has entirely mutated.
Which brings us back to that terrifying scenario we opened the deep dive with. Andrew Kagan highlighted an exploit that is currently keeping security professionals awake at night. The EvilTokens attack.
Yeah, evil tokens. To understand this, we have to look at the mechanism of modern authentication. When you log into an application, you aren't sending your password back and forth with every click.
Right, that would be incredibly insecure.
Exactly. You log in once, and the system issues a cryptographic token. It's like a digital wristband that proves who you are. And the agents we've been discussing operate using these tokens to do work on your behalf in the background.
Right, and the specific vulnerability here exploits the device code login process.
Yeah, the TV login thing.
Exactly. You know when you try to log into a streaming app on your smart TV, and it tells you to go to a website on your phone and type in an 8-letter code?
Everyone's done that.
Right. Well, hackers are using phishing tactics to trick users into completing that exact flow for malicious applications.
It's so sneaky.
It is. The user thinks they are authenticating a harmless internal tool, but they're actually generating a powerful access token and handing it directly to the attacker.
And the hacker doesn't even need your password.
Nope. And because you initiated the token request, they completely bypass your multi-factor authentication prompt. The token itself is the target.
And when an attacker steals that token, they essentially become you on the corporate network.
Which is terrifying.
Truly. So to counter this invisible token-based warfare, defenders are having to completely rethink the security operations center.
Right.
We're seeing the rise of the agentic SOC. Instead of human analysts staring at monitors trying to spot anomalous login patterns, defensive AI agents are autonomously hunting malicious AI agents across the network in real time.
Machine versus machine. And the frameworks to organize this defense are standardizing really rapidly. Microsoft Purview just released referential architecture diagrams to help organizations visually map out their data classification.
Because these environments are absurdly complex now.
Exactly. And the Microsoft 365 E7 Frontier Suite is offering entirely new, highly granular IT controls to lock down agent permissions. Even network giants like Cloudflare are adapting.
Oh yeah, they announced managed OAuth for access.
Right, which allows administrators to securely make internal corporate apps agent-ready with one click, ensuring those tokens are strictly governed.
But security's only half the battle, though.
What's the other half?
Proving to regulators that your systems are secure. Governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC, is undergoing a revolution of its own.
Oh, the Claude stuff.
Yes. One of the most disruptive tools mentioned in the entire newsletter is the introduction of installable .scale files for Claude.
Let's just pause and look at the structural impact of this, because it's wild. Historically, if a company needed to pass a major compliance audit, it took months of preparation.
Months.
You hired a team of expensive consultants from a Big Four accounting firm, handed over hundreds of spreadsheets, and literally waited for them to manually interview your IT staff.
It was incredibly tedious. And now that specialized expertise is being compressed into a single file extension.
Just a file.
Literally. By installing a specific .scale file, you turn your Claude AI into a world-class automated auditor. It connects to your environment via those MCP protocols we discussed earlier, reads your live configurations, and compares them against global standards in seconds.
And the list of frameworks it can handle is staggering. You can run gap analyses for ISO 27001, checking all 93 complex security controls for the 2022 update instantly. You can have the agent autonomously draft the 12 core policies required for SOC2 compliance based on how your company actually operates.
It handles FedRAMP readiness on AWS or Azure GovCloud. It does HIPAA audits for healthcare.
And it even evaluates against the brand new ISO 42001 AI Management System standard.
Right.
I mean, we are essentially commoditizing the entire regulatory consulting industry.
We really are, and it forces a very uncomfortable realization.
Yeah.
Hackers are using automated exploits like EvilTokens to bypass our defenses in milliseconds. We are deploying automated agentic SOCs and .scale files to detect the attacks and write our compliance reports.
Right.
The entire theater of cyber warfare and corporate governance is moving at a speed that humans physically cannot perceive, let alone react to.
Which raises the ultimate question. Are we just becoming referees? Are we just standing on the sidelines watching malicious code and defensive code fight it out and occasionally blowing a whistle when the Azure bill gets too high?
It really feels like that sometimes.
Right. So how do you, the listener right now, ensure you don't become obsolete when the tech stack is essentially automating its own maintenance?
Well, you stay relevant by elevating your perspective. You have to transition from knowing how to configure the system to knowing how to manage the agents configuring the system.
which requires a whole new set of skills.
Exactly. Microsoft understands this skills gap, which is why they are actively overhauling the Azure AI Fundamentals certification.
It's no longer just about knowing what AI is.
Right. It is about understanding the underlying mechanics of how these autonomous models integrate with enterprise architecture.
And if you want to get your hands dirty building these tools, there's an incredible new resource from Free Code Camp. They just dropped the OpenAI Codex Essentials AI-assisted agentic development course.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's a comprehensive exam prep course specifically designed to teach you how to build, orchestrate, and set those deterministic boundaries for AI coding agents.
And it doesn't even take that long.
No, they estimate it takes a beginner about 12 to 20 hours to complete. 20 hours of focused study could literally redefine your value in the modern job market.
That's an incredible ROI on your time. And for those who need to understand the strategic level, the industry trends section of Kagan's newsletter offered a highly curated reading list.
The 5 best books.
Yes, the 5 best books for building agentic AI systems in 2026. The literature has finally moved past theoretical, philosophical debates about AI and is now providing robust, deployable architectural patterns for engineering teams.
But, in classic tech industry fashion, just as we are finally starting to wrap our heads around this software revolution of AI agents, the physical hardware of the world drops a bombshell that promises to change everything all over again.
No, the quantum update, exactly. Yeah. To cap off the industry news, Kagan noted that a quantum payload just successfully reached orbit.
This feels like we are suddenly reading a sci-fi novel.
I know, but this isn't just a science experiment. It signifies that commercial quantum communication is on the near horizon.
The juxtaposition there is brilliant.
It really is.
Right now, every CIO and developer is obsessing over how to write specifications for software agents and how to secure their Azure environments against token theft.
While looking at the ground, basically.
Exactly. But the hardware architecture of tomorrow, quantum networks operating in the vacuum of space, capable of instantaneous, theoretically unhackable communication, is already quietly being deployed right over our heads.
The infrastructure that will run the next era of computing is being physically built while we are still struggling to clean up our unstructured SharePoint data for the current one.
It is a relentless, beautiful, and honestly slightly terrifying cycle.
Very true.
So let's bring this massive stack of updates back down to earth. We've covered an immense amount of ground today. We started in the engine room, discovering why conditioning our messy, unstructured data is the only way powerful new models like GPT 5.4 Pro can effectively utilize Azure's private, serverless GPU infrastructure.
Then we examine the cultural shift in DevOps, moving from fluid prompts to strict specifications, and how pipelines must become active, deterministic verifiers.
We explored how the Microsoft 365 interface is physically changing its shape to melt into the Copilot experience.
And we looked at the terrifying reality of the EvilTokens exploit bypassing our MFA.
And how the industry is countering with agentic SOCs and deployable cloud-compliant skills that basically commoditize the whole audit process.
And finally, we talked about the 20-hour free code camp boot camps and certifications required to upgrade your own human skills to stay ahead of the curve.
To you listening right now, thank you for trusting us to distill Andrew Kagan's deep insights. Time is your most valuable asset, and we appreciate you spending with us.
Navigating this shift requires continuous curiosity. Understanding the mechanisms behind these updates, not just the feature names, is what will keep you indispensable.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today. Think back to that ghostwriter analogy from the beginning.
Yeah.
If AI agents are now capable of cleaning up our hoarded legacy data, independently passing complex SOC2 compliance audits, and hunting down active threats inside our Azure infrastructure, at what point do we stop managing the technology entirely and strictly become managers of digital employees?
That's the real question.
And more importantly, if an agent is capable of learning and adapting its own code, what happens on the day your AI agent decides that it needs to take that free Code Camp certification course instead of you? Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.